Dude, that was off the top. That was actually a Troy original, if anyone's wondering. He came up with that right now. So, well done. Well
Literally.
done. Yeah.
Thanks,
No,
man.
no, I mean, it's a good point, right? I mean, I mean, the correlations today, it's kind of uncanny, right? Minus the fact that, we're trying to create our own country, but, just kind of the unrest in the streets and what's going on financially with individuals and,
Yeah, and
what,
everybody's got a different
the
unique.
stress that's causing, like
Right, right.
it's craziness out there right now, man.
For
But
some, it's not right.
yeah,
It's always this weird yin and yang thing. I mean, it's an opportunity just to, I don't know, for us to sit back, think about it, man, and let those things sink in. And what's this opportunity, and where's my motivation? Let's go.
exactly. Uh, Damn.
You want to break the news or me?
Dude, do we? I guess we break the. You go for it. You go for it.
All right. So we had this whole show in put together when David Ramsey was like, I'm in. Olga wanted to talk about SEG. We have this Mars geology. This is 3 months in the making. This Mars geology stuff is incredible. That thing is so cool. But David Ramsey hits me up in the morning. I'm in physical therapy because I got an old man's back riding dirt bikes. And he's like, man, I need to adjust the time. And I'm like, that's a live event, man. I adjust the time. What do you mean? And so he's like, I can't make it. And something popped up. And it's really an amazing story. LinkedIn has totally removed this dude from LinkedIn, blocked him from doing anything. And in our conversation today, which we were hoping to have live, he was telling me about how that's going. And he's just, man, it's pretty wild. They shut him down completely just for passing information. But he was heavily in what he thought about it, specifically COVID, and they booted him for what he was bringing up and the conversations that he was creating, and it was wild. So he's like, I'm going after these guys, and so that was really interesting. But at the end of the day, he couldn't make it. So we have all this content essentially from his show. We have these great discussions, but right now, Skippo, who do we need the most?
So we're freestyling today, folks. This is going to be a show for the people, by the people.
At
least the first
half.
part. Yeah, the first half of this, because we don't want to show you guys a video of, the conversations that we had with Ramsden, because that's just, you can do that on your own time. That's not what we're here for. We're here for a live discussion. We're here for thought-provoking ideas. We're here to, just kind of discuss what's going on now. And we were hoping to do it with Ramsden, but unfortunately, because that fell through, you guys are the show today.
Yes. Welcome to the show. Welcome to PBE Live. Just have stable Wi-Fi, just not be in a car, but we want to bring you in. We're going to have, literally me and Skips are going to have an open discussion right now, and we'll just kind of play it out. If we see people dropping out and not interested, we'll move to Olga. She's ready with SEG. Thank goodness. She's like 15 minutes early, digital background, lighting. She's ready to go.
Thank goodness for Olga.
And Mars geology, folks, I can't even put this in good words of how incredible the geology and the interpretations and the data. It's basically an 8-year compilation of data done in 3 months from Stan Keith. Very, very unique perspective about how rocks are put together. Mars is incredible. Incredible. NASA, JPL, I hope you're on the show because it's so fascinating what's happening on Mars. We'll get there. Before that, as everyone's kind of, I think, still figuring this out, you're live. We want to bring you in. All you have to do is raise your hand. Oh, we got a chat. What do you got in the chat? Anything good?
Yeah.
But one thing, while you're looking for somebody and we're seeing if this actually works and somebody comes on the show, David Ramsey started talking about how supply and demand is so obviously thrown off. And it's like a 500-day prediction. What? 500 days longer of not making money? That sounds gnarly. And he's like, yep. And he had all this reasoning behind it. And he used ExxonMobil as an example on the website. It's really good stuff. But basically what he was saying was we took all this money from 2009 and shortly thereafter, 300 billion, whatever the number is, and we just started pumping it into laying these laterals and creating this incredible business and growth that happened at $100 oil. Now that's not $100 oil, and now there's this big supply and demand problem, and he's saying this doesn't look like it's going to offset for a while. And everybody's saying, all right, you're making a prediction, obviously. And he's just throwing it out there. It was interesting. I'm like, dude, what about global demand? We can't forget about the fact that we need so many more roads and buildings and schools and everything for all the societies and cities. And there's so much work. There's so much growth around the globe. What about that? Isn't that a massive demand that could show up? And he's like, yep, I'm not, you're not debating that. Nah, I mean, hey, your situation of going out there and saying whatever you want to say and it's controversial. So there's whatever. I'm sure he gets complaints about it. I don't know. Maybe LinkedIn just has this automatic system that says, all right, it's just got to the point, done. Cutting you out. That's kind of crazy. That's like a freedom of speech thing, whatever.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Cause I mean, he should be able to express his opinion freely, right? That's, right. I mean, it's in the Bill of Rights. That's the beautiful thing about this country, right? We're all given the freedom of speech, but I guess when you're on one of these platforms and, Facebook has gotten heat for it, YouTube has gotten heat for it, as far as expressing that freedom of speech, you're still under their platform's control and those moderators' control.
It kind of makes sense, man. I always say social media is way too soon. Our society wasn't ready for social media you're going to tell me everything you think about everything? We're not ready for that. We got too many things to think about ourselves. We're figuring it out, man.
Exactly.
Like, social media just turned this tornado of whatever, negativity and positivity.
Yeah, and it's that tornado of negativity and positivity. But, I mean, there are lines as far as, spreading misinformation or, and I'm not really familiar what David has been posting over the last month or so, but I knew there was some stuff. I knew there was some stuff about COVID, and I mean, when you're like posting hot takes on statistics about, like you said, fatality rates and that kind of stuff, that's a real touchy area, right? Because you say something wrong, and all of a sudden that's kind of the taking the step back.
It's interesting. So there's like a policy in LinkedIn that's like, look, we can't validate necessarily the resources of anything. So let's control where people are getting their information by.
Oh, hey, Brian agrees with me.
Nice.
Yeah, Brian Bottoms, he says, I agree with freedom of speech, but DRW spreading misinformation sometimes. Not all of his posts, but dude, this is good stuff in the chat from Calvin and Brian. Calvin then responded, and climate change folks aren't. History gets written by the victors. But yeah, that's an interesting one. Because I mean, we talked about climate change on our last podcast. Yeah, and that's another really weird area to like touch on as well.
Well, it's exactly in context to what we're talking about. This is a real life in context problem from what we're learning in this discussion. And that's the fact that we're not ready for social media. We're not ready to hear everybody's minds about all these subjects. Here's why. Climate change. Mm-hmm. We think that we actually have the ability to make a massive, drastic impact on the planet by what we do as human beings on this planet. And people take that to the extremes. It's an emotional attachment to you're destroying our planet. And it's so misunderstood because of scale, the simple thing of scale. We have to just chill, hit the pump the brakes. COVID is telling us, pump the brakes, Skippo. It's like, pump the brakes, think about some shit. Let's reevaluate. Let's talk about it in modern context, in modern fucking geologic concepts, and let's talk about it. And so when you do that, it gets really, really good. I had a great little heater with somebody. He's like, oh, look at all these fires in California. And he's driving around filming the fires. And I'm like, dude, a little extreme. And he's like, what do you think? It's not this? I'm like, whoa, what do you mean? Let's talk. So I just bared him down.
You mean the fires that have been going on for like the last 200 years in California?
That's right. You know what the fires are, Skippo? I think geologically what's happening in California is under major strike slip stress. there's tension, and there's methane. There's a bunch of gas in California and underneath California, and any kind of movement, what's it going to cause? Friction. Friction causes spark. What's that going to cause? It's going to light the methane that's coming up through the cracks. That could totally be a real hypothesis. Somebody else needs to do a PhD
and it is like a valid hypothesis, because you have methane seeps all across the San Andreas and like synthetic faults on the San Andreas. I mean, when you look at basically the front of the Sierra Nevada batholith on like the western margin where the San Andreas kind of like bounds across. Yeah. Like you have all these massive forests, right? And then where you have those areas of transtension, you have massive methane seeps that are just coming to the surface. And that's something, folks. That's stuff that can't be quantified as far as, methane release into the atmosphere. I mean, I haven't seen any reports on it.
CH4. Yeah. We got carbon. Carbon's just pumping out of this thing. And we're thinking, carbon, CO2. I even get in debates with Stan over this. I'm like, dude, Stan, it's like a tenth of a percent of the atmosphere. And you're saying slight little tweaks to that tiny little piece of the atmosphere is chaotic. And he's like, hey, that's what the data does suggest, that fine-tuned CO2 data through geologic time has this major influence. I'm like, yeah, but what about all the other things? Nitrogen, oxygen, what's all that stuff doing in the atmosphere? Water, what's all that doing in the atmosphere at the same time?
Matthew's he says, I think your spark method needs to be rethought. Ooh, I like it. So what do you Hey, so Matthew, would you mind coming on and like getting your hot take?
No matter what, if it's bad video, bad audio, we got to remove you. Let's give it a try.
I don't know if I'll be able to do video, but we can do audio. It's Bello Bradick.
Bello Bradick. Okay. I botched it. Yeah, I was close, but yeah.
You sound like somebody from the Vikings.
It's Croatian originally.
Wow, cool, man. What are you, 6'8"?
Sure, we'll go with that.
All right, I might have different answers now that I know you're a beast. No, tell us what you're thinking.
No, I think, if you want to go down the road of coming up with different hypotheses of what's causing climate change and all that, I mean, sure, but you can start testing these things. The atmosphere is a closed system, more or less a closed system. So anything you put into it's got to come out of it. Right now, we're putting in CO2. We don't really have a good CO2 sink except for the oceans. And when you start dissolving lots of CO2 in the ocean, you start to make a lot of acid.
Okay. What are you getting at? Are you getting at that we have a model today that is completely defendable on this?
Well, come on. Now, all models are wrong, right? Some are useful.
Right. Yep. So what are you getting at?
Well, I don't know what I'm getting at. I'm just saying that, for you to say that, the methane coming out of California is what's causing it all to burn, it's probably not the case.
No. Interesting. I agree with you there. It's more of just a working hypothesis on one of the potential.
Yeah. Anybody thinking about it? It's a question for back to.
But no. I agree with you. I think I think the methane seeps are also part of it in some areas, especially up north, like east of Sacramento, Grass Valley. That whole area is very, very interesting geologically.
Right. Into the deep. And see, we're getting to a good discussion about what's wrong with the climate science as a whole. Look at the scale of the planet, and then look at the scale of the data that's going into the model. And granted, we don't have the ability to take all the data, but we have the ability to make some really, really good sound assumptions about what this scale has to say. Specifically, definitely, the concept of serpentinization. That is an incredibly new and profound process that's happening on this planet. It's without question happening on Mars, which we'll talk about later. Serpentinization is a global process. It's basically the moho. Serpentinization, dehydration of peridotite. When ocean water and rock formation happens at depth, we're talking 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers, up to 40. Serpentinization is a process that's happening. The model doesn't take that into consideration. The model's just reading the atmosphere and trying to figure things out. We got to get the model to think of scale. And that's where Skip's point was with the tension around these big bends in California that we know methane's coming out of. That's just where the big stuff's happening.
So,
what about the small scale?
But the other thing that, to add, it's definitely happening, right? That's definitely something that, I mean, we're coming out of an ice age, right?
Right.
So I think the more interesting topic is how much has human impact had on changing the climate, right? How much of an impact has it truly accelerated like that rate? I think that's where my head's at on the issue. I know climate change, I feel like for most people probably who are also attending are, it's like a touchy subject, right?
It is way too touchy. The biggest problem is the emotion side of it. It gets very passionate very quickly on the subject. We got to pull that out and talk rocks and think about full scale, new ideas. We know that the model's not right. Okay, let's incorporate some new ideas. Let's talk about it.
Well, it's very difficult to figure out how fast things are really happening when you go back and compare things to geologic time, because there's lots of clinker beds, at the end of the Cretaceous that aren't associated with the asteroid impact that were huge fires. How many times did that happen and all that?
Yeah.
But we do know that we did have an impact when we did the Clean Air Act. We went from lots of particulates in the air to no reduced amount of particulates in the air. And we went from cooling to warming right there around that time.
Interesting.
So to say that we have no impact on the closed system of the atmosphere, which is really a thin layer, I think that'd be really hard to hard to come up with a way to say that we absolutely don't.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Absolutely don't. Sorry if I use that terminology. You got a great point. What's cool about the Cretaceous is it's one of the hottest times on the planet. And what do we see in the geologic rock record? We see a planet thriving with life. We see a happy, totally living, full of life planet. Getting hotter is not bad. Getting cold kills us. Getting hotter, we can deal with that. Do we have to drastically make decisions on how we're going to totally change a whole industry and how the planet functions and how we have to rush that decision and rush those processes? No way. It doesn't make sense.
Well, actually, first, Neil, don't be so flaccid going to climate change. All right. Thanks, Neil. Love it. And then Brian says, we have had many hydrocarbon seeps. It is how we found our first wells. We need to realize that this is due to the El Nino La Nina effect. La Nina is what is happening right now, hence the hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico. But when we have been in the El Nino for a long time, which has caused the droughts in California.
So it's like a scale thing. He's saying like these things.
It's like cyclicity.
Yeah. Williston cycles, the wobble of the earth and the sun flares and all that stuff adding up. Matt, where are you? Where's that audio coming from?
I'm just south of Denver.
Oh, cool, man. The fires, are they pretty gnarly up there? I've heard some things.
We had one day where ash was falling out of the sky. Many days where it's been pretty hazy and stuff like that. It's not pleasant.
Before this gets too complicated, Matt, it was great listening to you and getting to know you, man. I hope to stay in contact with all this stuff. It's a good conversation.
Thanks so much. I look forward to hearing the rest of the show.
Right on, man. Thanks.
You guys can hear me?
Yeah, we got you,
sir.
Scott Taylor.
Nice.
What are you doing, man? Where are you at, and what are you doing?
Well, I'm also sitting in South Denver, and I will say, irrespective of the debate over the minutia of climate change, climate warming, what's I find unpleasant is the past month and a half. We've had probably 2 or 3 days where we can be at our house and see the mountains, and I think that a more focused debate rather than pointing fingers at causation is solutions based. So I posit that as I hate this vitriolic argument the reason for this is because of this. Well, that's great. That's you can't change what happened in the past. What you can try to do is propose a solution to rectify this so that it's pleasant and enjoyable to go outside, for example, to go into the mountains for a hike, or to go and take my kids out and go fishing on the river, right? And not have ash guy. And that's not necessarily something that's related in all cases to a climate change or human related activity, but I think that would be something that for people in California, especially in Colorado and in Oregon right now, where where I grew up in Vancouver, Canada, it was looked like Mars. It was miserable. The same thing.
You bring up a good point about solutions.
Solutions is where I like to focus.
Right. Your focus is on
we're we're a solutions-based industry in the energy business. Like,
Right.
you know, it's like more like just focus on the solutions.
Yep. Nah, dude, that's really good. Focus on the solutions, and that's what is an opportunity to bring in new ideas to the model and bring in new solutions, new ideas that are going to drive things that are actually making an impact on what we could be or could not be doing, whatever. I love that. You're a solutions guy, Scott.
Yeah, because otherwise you get bogged down in
Not to throw you under the bus, Scott, but what is your solution? How are you saving us?
I don't necessarily have one.
I know you do.
I would just, I would say is like, I just don't, I think it's kind of a, you know, esoterically, it's a moot point to, you know, get into an argument about who's at fault, what's the causation. You know, we're all living here, we're all living on this planet, and we all enjoy looking at the sunshine and going outdoors with our kids. And we all enjoy having electricity and the comforts that we have in our society. And, you know, there's a lot of horsepower in this industry. And rather than being in a defensive mode or a vitriolic mode where you get into an argument, you know, where is that next solution going to come from? I want, like you said at the beginning, where's that positive energy, man?
Right on, man. I love that. I'm glad you popped in and reminded us of positivity. Two roads coming together, making a new road, lasts longer, it's wider, can hold more people, whatever it is. New road. Keep large objects off the tracks. Don't drive it through the windy areas. I like it, man. You're spot on, dude. And the science and what's progressing on this side, specifically in the science community, that is where that's kind of thing we need to follow this up with. Who is it? How does that even get started? How do you start even attempting to build a committee that is saying, look, that's what we're doing? Or where is that committee? Let's do a show with that committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I mean, that really is kind of the mindset we need to be having instead of, just, you know, either putting your head down and trudging forward and just kind of being, you know, oblivious to what's going on, or, you know, trying to dive deep so far into the problem that you actually get lost in the problem itself, that to the point where you're not actually looking for a solution. I think that's just that's kind of a microcosm of a lot of things that are going on right now.
You know why that is? It's much easier to blame someone or attack someone than it is to like actually spend the time and mental effort to go and actually find a technical solution to a very complex problem. And that's why.
Exactly.
That's exactly why. It's an energy problem.
There's always that answer too, where it's like, well, someone else will work on it. I'm just going to sit here.
Yeah. And well, here we are, man. I mean, Mars geology is about an ultra deep hydrothermal process that Stan and Magna-Chem has gone around documenting around the planet. And now they're applying it to Mars. And this UDH process is huge and so powerful. So it'll be interesting to keep this in perspective as we go towards the Mars presentation. Skits, what do you think? I mean, do we take a vote and just say, do we bring in Olga and move on, or are we going to keep?
Wait, no, the people are still speaking. Brian Bottoms, this is something that he wanted to ask DRW. He often says that all rock worth owning is already owned. I disagree with this statement. He also praises EOG. EOG has claimed to be stealth leasing 5 to 6 plays across the U.S. at minimal acreage costs. Where do you think these plays are, and how viable do you think they are? Damn, that's a great question.
Dang,
that's a
dude.
super fucking good question.
Such a good question. I need a beer. Maybe a break.
Yeah.
Dude. All right. So David Ranswood's commentary, I feel like, you know, for me, I scrap that as the dude lives in the business world. Business is 20 years ahead of its time. I mean, it's making calculations on EURs and making the prediction, can you make money and how much money are you going to make? That's been running. And you can push that out a long ways. And so, how fast can change happen? I don't know, Brian Bottoms. I think it's going to come up to us. The only way we get drastically better is by building the community that's making the decisions to do those exchange those ideas with different ideas. That change is going to take time.
So T-Roy, big brain question. So where do you think those plays are? Where do you think EOG is leasing up secret acreage?
Yeah, look at that. I gotta turn my back for a second. This is the cracks of the world. And what I'm doing is putting together a big ass structural story and looking for tension. See? That's what I think they all found. North 70 West.
dude.
Texas Shear
Matt,
Zone in Skippo's thesis goes right through the Permian, goes right through all kinds of amazing deposits, natural mineral deposits. And I would be chasing that, and then I'm going to start splaying off of that system strategically using the grab mag and big regional data, and I'm going to start putting out ideas.
Ooh, Matthew, on fire today, dude. So do you think it's stealth leasing or stealth acquisitions with the downturn? I think it's a combination of the two, but I would say it's more
you're saying
stealth.
50-50?
I'd say it's more stealth acquisitions
Yeah.
with the downturn.
60-40.
That's what oh, Brian Bottoms says stealth leasing. Yeah. New play concept. I think it's just some stuff they probably had on the shelf that now that, you know, prices have gone down, now they can go out. And I mean, that's the way to do it, right? Buy low, sell high. That's how you make money. You don't make money buying high and then attempting to, you know, sell low.
Yeah.
But because a lot of people have done in the Permian.
Yeah.
And
When those announcements
lost a lot of money.
Right. When those announcements gets made, Brian Bottoms, I'm hoping you're going to email us and let us know exactly where that was. Because my question, or what I'd be interested in, is it all unconventional, or did they find this big, you know, dolomite conventional type thing? And what are they buying? Right. What are they going after?
Dude,
that was good, man.
Chat's blowing up. Yeah. Neil says they're looking in Wyoming and Utah. Wouldn't be surprised.
I'd be surprised if how much of it's Permian.
I mean, the way that, you know, Diamondback talked about Dean, you know, it seems like it's something that could be viable. I mean, it's sandwiched right in between, you know, Sprayberry Wolf Camp, sitting right there. So it's
that's interesting.
It's just finding Dean that, you know, doesn't have, you know, 16 well bores around it that have all been, you know, blown to bits. You know, it's been cubed in there, but
EUR technology, man, you're bringing it up. Kind of an idea.
Yeah.
Got all the real close knit, well communication through the rocks. What happens? Add some temperature. Add some crazy chemicals down there. Not chemicals. A brine solution.
Yeah, don't mess with that chemistry. Don't mess with that reservoir chemistry. Please God. Oh man. Maybe later. Okay. I think this is a good time to cut this off.
10 minutes, Miss Olga and SEG, how virtual 2020 SEG is going to actually work. She's going to give us a bunch of insight on that. And we'll be back in 10.